Hello everyone, Nick here from Talking Cardboard, and today I'll be talking about, as well as doing limited playthrough and review of the board game March of the Ants by Weird City Games. Now, March of the Ants was originally published in 2014 and is designed by Ryan Swisher and Tim Eisner. This game plays from 1 to 5 players, as it does have rules for solitaire and cooperative play, as well as for competitive play. And the game time says 60 to 90 minutes in length. And to summarize this game, I would say it's essentially an ant-themed 4X board game. In this game, there will be exploring you're doing with your ant colony. You will be expanding your ant colony as you try to add more ants to your colony so that you're able to essentially do more things on each turn. You'll have the opportunity to exploit the areas that you're expanding and exploring by getting resources you need for a thriving ant colony. And then finally, there is the potential for extermination. In the competitive game, you will be trying to exterminate the ants of your fellow opponents, but in the cooperative and solitaire mode, you'll be trying to exterminate these centipedes that are trying to, in turn, exterminate your ant colony. With that said, how did I hear about this game? I can't quite remember exactly when I first noticed March of the Ants. I feel like I might have been in a local game store when I saw it on a shelf. It's possible, though, I saw it online first. Nonetheless, I got this game actually several years ago. And of course, like most games, I got it and it ended up going to my shelf. But then recently, a year or two ago, Weird City Games did a Kickstarter for a second expansion to this board game called Empires of the Earth. And that kind of got me interested again in trying this game out. And in fact, I learned that they also had an expansion that was released even before this one called Minions of the Meadow. Now, I'm not going to be talking in detail about these expansion in today's video or playing with them even. I feel to do this game justice, I should play just with the base game first and not with any of the expansion content, since I'm still learning just the base mechanics of this game. But I do want to point out that these expansions for the base game exist, and they do add content that can be used both in the cooperative solitaire play modes as well as the competitive play modes. So keep that in mind. Other than that, I don't know if I have a lot more to say about this game before we get started, except the reason that this theme appealed to me is it was very reminiscent of the Sim Ants game that I remember playing on my computer many years ago. And I can't say that I even played Sim Ants extensively on the computer. I probably logged only a handful of hours playing that game, but I just remember thinking, oh, this is really cool to like have a real-time strategy game with a ant themed instead of, typically it's some sort of human war type theme when you're playing a game like that. But to instead be playing with ants and trying to expand an ant colony, that was really cool to me. And that brings me here today to finally play this game for you guys so you can understand what it's like too. Oh yeah, just to clarify, I'm going to be focused on playing this game solitaire. So to reiterate, this game does have competitive ways to play, but I'm focused on the solitaire, and it can be played cooperatively. I was thinking about playing cooperatively and playing 2 different colonies, but I thought I just want to play solitaire to keep it simple. So I'm going to be just playing this game solitaire today. And with that said, let's start playing. So here I have a game of March of the Ants essentially ready to play for a solitaire game. And before I get started, I want to give a full rules explanation right now because I'll try to explain things as I'm actually playing the game, but I just want to give you an idea of what everything is. So first we have the map itself. When you start a game of March of the Ants, you only have, I think, for the solitaire game, this great tunnel area, which is basically, think of it as one giant hex, and then 1 or 2 hexes on the outside of that starting great tunnel hex. And as you progress through the game, you're going to be taking exploring actions, which adds more and more of these map hexes to the map. But essentially, you start with this at the beginning of the game, and that's the map that your ants are going to be exploring and trying to get resources and colony points, and basically where all the action happens. There's also a colony point tracker This is how we track our colony points, as well as then, in this case, the AI's colony points. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most colony points wins. In a competitive game, of course, it's whatever player has the most colony points, but in the solo game, I just need to have more points than the Centipede player. Then every player has their own colony board, which provides a great overview of the various phases of the game, but also is where you keep your resources. There's really just two resources in the game. There's larva, and then there's food. And actually food is represented by these discs. And as you can see, a larva is also the same cube that your ants are. And essentially, once a larva moves from your board onto the map, it becomes an ant. So that's how that is represented in this game. And then you can see this diagram of an ant also on your colony board. Throughout the game, you may have the opportunity of drawing these evolution cards that you can play to add to your ant, and that's going to provide a variety of benefits to you as the player that I'll explain probably at some point as we play the game, but that's what that's all about. So that's the colony board. Over here, we have the centipede board, which is only used in the solitaire and co-op game. And essentially, the AI player, or the centipede player, works by just drawing a card from their deck, and then depending on the type of card you drew, whether it's an event, evolution, or colony goal, you just do that, you resolve that particular action. So if I drew an event card, I would do this for the centipede. If I drew an evolution, I do this for the centipede. If I drew a colony, I would do this for the centipede. And you'll get to see that in action here shortly. We have the tiles themselves that, we'll be exploring, and then on each tile, there's these zones that you place these little cubes or boxes that you place your ants are, and those boxes provide you the resource that corresponds to that box. So if I had an ant located on this box during the queen phase of the game, I then get to collect one food. The boxes with the arrows around them, like this one, are called control spaces, and those, if I have my ant here, I now control this whole hex, which provides me victory colony points as well. So that's what that's all about, and I think that kind of covers everything that I want to point out before we get started. These are what the centipedes look like. So throughout the game, I'm going to be placing these probably all throughout the board. Typically, centipedes come out in the multiplayer game. Centipedes only come out when you draw a hex that has the centipede icon on it, like this does. But in the solitaire cooperative game, the centipedes come out based on the cards you're drawing from their AI deck. So with that said, I think we're good to get started. So I'm ready to get started. In the solitaire game, it does say that there's a few changes to set up. First of all, you do get to draw a hex to begin with, and the rules say to have 3 ants on that hex. You do start with 3 larvae, and then instead of just 2 cards, you get to draw with 4 cards. So I'll go through the cards I drew right now, just in case you are all wondering what I got. They're all evolutions, interestingly. I don't know if there's more evolution cards or not than others in the deck, but the first is a proboscis head. I'm noticing that I think an icon's missing in the lower right to show that it would be a head evolution, but it says when you win a battle, immediately collect 1 resource from any collection site in the hex where you battled. So already that sounds like a nice upgrade to have, since I know we'll be doing a lot of battling against centipedes. This is a harvester thorax, and it says after you explore, immediately collect 1 larva from each larva collection site that you inhabit in the explored hex. That's okay. I don't think I'm going to be able to do a lot of exploring because of the fact I need to focus on defending against these centipedes. Scouting thorax, when you explore, look at the top 2 hexes, choose 1 to explore, put the other hex on the top or bottom. Also, it's not bad, but since I don't care too much about exploring, I don't know if I really want to get that particular card or evolution. And then the last one is Carpenter Abdomen. At the start of the queen phase, discard the top card of the deck. You may move steps equal to the ferocity value of the discarded card. Move ants only. That sounds interesting. Honestly, I don't know in practice how it would benefit me, but it definitely is an interesting idea. So that's what I have to start with. And let's get this game going. Now, after every time I do an action, the centipede does get to go. So I have to be cognizant of that. But something that I feel is worth doing right away is an explore action. So from this hex, I'm going to explore next door. And I'm going to... Darn. I guess like this. I ideally wanted to connect it to the main Great Tunnel so I could get there from here, but that's fine. So I move one ant over to that grasslands area. I'm putting it in the control site because I get victory point, colony points for controlling the hexes around the Great Tunnel, which is called the inner meadow. So I get a colony point during each slumber phase for each inner meadow hex you control. Honestly, I'd rather be getting one of these other resources than a card, but cards are still useful for sure, and that's what the control site gives me. So that would, and that does, an explorer costs 1 food, so I have to pay that up. And that concludes my action. So then the centipede will draw, and it's an event card. For an event, it says advance, and that would move a centipede, but since there's no centipedes currently on the map, we instead do the advanced sentry action down here, which says if the centipede horde reveals an event card and there are no centipedes to move, then a hex will be explored. Reveal and place a hex anywhere in the meadow with a centipede token on that hex. If that hex contains a centipede icon, reveal and resolve another centipede card. So I don't want to resolve another centipede card here, ideally. And it says I can kind of place this wherever I want. And I'm going to go ahead and place it right here, I guess. Or not, maybe right here. And I think it benefits me to have it definitely next to the Great Tunnel because it gives me one more hex that I can go after for the victory points. For colony points, I mean. Now, I'm actually tempted to just end my turn and see what the centipede does, and take a rest action and just keep these larvae in here. Because if I were to do a march, I don't know if I would get my full value out of the march action, because with a march you get to do 5 steps worth, and that's essentially like moving 5 ants, and I don't want to move those 3, and then I only have 3 remaining. I could instead just get one of these cards, or I could go for control of a space. Well, I'm going to do a march, and that does cost me a food, and I'm going to go ahead and move. When you march, you have to. So I take that back. I think it still will need the full value of the march. So I can place you can place them in inhabited hexes or in the Great Tunnel. So I'm going to place 1 larva right away in here in the Great Tunnel, and then I'm also going to place my other 2 right in the one in the grasslands and my other 2 larvae in the Great Tunnel. So that's 3 steps. I still have 2 more that I can use. So for my remaining 2 steps, I'm going to move these 2 ants from the Great Tunnel into the Dry Seep. Yeah. And take over those 2 collection sites. Actually, I'm debating if I really care about the card and instead maybe want to move it over there and get another larva, because the larva are pretty useful. So maybe I'll just do that. Yeah, I'm overthinking this. I'll just keep it there. So now the centipede gets to go, and they drew an evolution card. Evolution says invade. Add a centipede to the meadow. Place the centipede in the highest numbered hex that does not already contain one. So this is a 2, this is a 4, this is a 1. So it will go on the grasslands. And now it goes back to me. I don't really have anything I can do anyway. So for my action, I'll do a rest, which places a centipede, which allows me to get a larva. And then the centipede will take their final turn for the round or for the season, and they draw the colony goal card, which is this rampage action, which is not very good, because what that means is it says centipede battle takes place in each hex that is both inhabited by ants and contains a centipede token, which is this grasslands hex. Now I have to make a decision if I really want to defend it or not. Well, the first I do get the centipede's going to draw 2 cards. They draw a card first before I have to make a decision, and they drew a 1. So right now the centipede's strength is only a 1. Mine's a 2 because I have 2 ants there. So as of now I would win, but they do draw 1 more card, which could be up to 5 in value. So to guarantee a win, I could play this 4. Or I could just play a 1. I could play any of these. So I could play a 4, which would pretty much guarantee me a victory in this for this battle. I'll just go ahead and do that. So now, or that's enemy discard. So it goes discard over here. So they draw their next card, and it's a 2. So they ended up with a total of 3. I had a total of 6. So I won. When you win a battle, you do get a colony point. Now I still have to take casualties. I do kill the centipede, but then I take casualties, which is the value, the number of casualties I take is their strength, half of their strength rounded down. So they had 3, half that's 1.5 rounded down to 1. So I lose 1 ant. And I already have 2 food sites. So I'm going to just give up my food site, because then that allows me to keep the control site, so I get a victory point for that. So that was Rampage. That was the end of the worker phase. So now we move to the soldier phase, where we would resolve any battles for incontested hexes, and there's none to resolve right now, so that's good. We now move to the queen phase, which we harvest, so I collect resources. So this is kind of fun. I'm actually getting things now. So I get 2 larvae from this tall sand hex. That's it for larva. And then I get 1 food for tall sand and 1 food from dry seep for a total of 2 food. And then I get 2 more cards. 1 from grasslands and 1 from dry seep. Okay. Oh, and I drew Blasting Head, which says at the start of the soldier phase you may sacrifice 1 of your ants from a contested hex. If you do, discard the top card from the deck and destroy ants in that contested hex equal to the ferocity value. So this is unfortunately useless in solo or cooperative. The ability is I could still get this head for a head value for the passive soldier bonus, because for every head evolution you get +1 combat. So, but I think it's not worth then the 3 resources because I wouldn't get the value of its ability. And then I also drew this colony goal, which says when played, move one of your ants to any empty collection site. Each summer phase, gain 1 victory, 1 collection colony goal point for every 2 single larva collection sites you inhabit. That also is of huge value to me. So those are both cards though that do have decent ferocity values, a 4 and a 3. So that those will probably be cards I'll want to use in combat. And then I do have to feed my ants. So it's 1 food feeds 4 ants. I actually have a total of 5. So unfortunately, I do have to spend both of my food tokens to feed my 5 ants. And then we go to the Royal Decree, which is gain 2 food or 5 larvae. Now, this is a tough decision because obviously I have 0 food. I will be collecting 2 food at the end of my next turn, assuming I don't lose control of those 2 hexes. So I'm going to maybe roll the dice here and just go with taking more larvae for now, or taking the 5 larvae and seeing what happens. And now we go to the slumber phase. So slumber is each gain 1 colony point for each inner metal hex you control. And right now I have this one, this one, and this one, so that's 3 colony points, and that puts me up to a 4 total. So that's great. And now we advance the round marker and we go to the next season, which is called Green Growth, which I guess is more like a summer, early summer maybe. And now we start over again with my first action. I think I'll do one more round and then whatever happens, I'll end it there just because these rounds don't take incredibly long. And for my first action, I know I want to do... Well, actually, maybe this is a good opportune time to determine if I want to get one of these things. I was eyeing this proboscis head because it's only 2 larvae and gets me a head bonus, and it's actually an ability that I think would be pretty nice to have. So I'm going to spend 2 larvae to pay for that. And then the centipede gets to take a turn. They did an evolution. Evolution card means they invade, which simply means the centipede's added to the highest numbered hex, which is grasslands. And in response to that, I'm going to go ahead and call up the troops and do... Oh, see, this is where I made a pretty big mistake. Because I realize now that I can't march without food. And that's a problem. So if I could go back, I would, but I'm going to illustrate right now how important food is because I have these 6 ants here that are just going to stay, well, now they're larvae. I have 6 larvae that are unfortunately going to just have to stay there because I don't have a way of getting food. I could buy another evolution card, but that really just compounds my issue further. So I'm just going to do a rest right away and hope for the best here. And they draw an event, and an event is an advance. So the centipede on the lowest numbered hex moves a number of jumps equal to the ferocity value. So they're going to, but they go from hex to hex, which but since they have a 3 value jump, that puts them basically 1, 2, and then 3 right into the tunnel. This is interesting. It actually is both good and bad because now I don't have to worry about fighting that centipede. But this is the bad news. The centipede gets points. 1 point each time it enters the Great Tunnel. So it does get a colony point for entering the Great Tunnel. And then from now on, for the rest of the game, it's going to get 1 point during the slumber phase for each centipede in the Great Tunnel. Right now it's just one, so they're at least getting 1 colony point indefinitely. And there's nothing you can really do about the centipedes in the Great Tunnel. You can't fight them, so they're just gonna sit there. All right. Well, that was the end of the worker phase. We moved to the soldier phase. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about fighting a centipede. So we move straight to the queen phase, where I get to harvest again and collect my resources. So now I'm collecting 2 more larvae, 2 food, and then 2 cards. And this time I drew an abdomen evolution that says during harvest in the queen phase you may collect 1 additional larva from up to 4 single larva collection sites that you inhabit, which I actually don't even have any, so this card would be kind of useless for me right now. I only have this double larva collection site. And then a thorax evolution that says when you forage you may draw 1 additional card. And that's something also I'm not too keen on right now, because I'm not really worried about spending food just to draw a card. Doesn't seem like a very good return on investment. We now go to feeding the ants, which I do have enough. I still have to spend my 2 food to do that, but at least I can. And then Royal Decree. And this time I learned from my mistake that last phase, and I'm going to make sure I get 2 foods so I can actually do some more actions this upcoming phase, or this upcoming season. And then we go to Slumber. Slumber, I gain 1 colony point for each inner metal hex that I control, so that would be puts me up to 7. But now that the centipede's in the Great Tunnel, the centipede player is going to get a colony point. But of course, if we ended the game right now, I would win. So that's good, but once these start to accumulate in the Great Tunnel, I'm guessing it can kind of get out of hand. So that's the end of the slumber phase. We move to the next season, and that round took not a lot of time. I think I'll keep going here, and I'll do. Let's see. I'm tempted to play a evolution, but I like having these cards. Are great to just keep for fighting purposes. So I don't even know if I need to spend one for. Yeah, I don't think I will. I'm going to spend a food to explore, or to march, I mean, and for that I'm going to place 2 in this grassland area. And then I'm going to just, let's see, kind of bolster my other 2 areas in assuming we're going to have a battle here at some point. And then it goes to the centipede player's turn. Their card is an evolution, so they do an invade, which places a centipede in the highest number space, which is grasslands. And now I think I'm just going to I don't think I've been put that there. I think I'm just going to hold here. I like where I'm at right now. I don't want to do anything drastic. So I'm going to rest, which gets me a larva. And then the centipede will do their last action, which is another invade, which adds a centipede to the next highest numbered hex without 1, which is dry seep over here. Okay, so now we have to go and resolve combat. And I think you start with, when you battle, was it high? It's not a huge deal, but resolve battles by hex number starting with the lowest. Okay, that's what I was trying to find. So the lowest hex is this dry seep. So we first draw one card for the centipede. It's a 1. So right now their strength is just 1. Mine is 3 plus my head evolution, which is 4. So I don't probably need to add a lot to this. But I'm going to be it safe, play this 3 because I don't plan on getting this blasting head evolution card anyway. So by getting that, I now am at 7 total ferocity or army strength, and then centipede draws again. It's only 1, so they only had 2 against my 7. So an easy kill. I do lose an ant, but I actually had an extra ant on the outskirts. By the way, outskirts is considered the area, the area on a hex that's not a collection site. So there's 2 collection sites here, and then anything else. If you have an ant anywhere else, that's just called the outskirts. So I do lose an ant, but this is where my evolution comes into play. When you win a battle, immediately collect 1 resource from any collection site in the hex that you just battled. I'm going to go ahead and take a food. I don't feel I need a card. So I'll take a food, and I won the battle. That gives me a victory point. So now we move to the next contested hex, which is the grasslands. We once again first draw the first card for the centipede, so they have a starting army strength value of 2. I currently have 4, and I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing. I'm just going to spend this evolution card, which gives me 3 more, so that puts me up to 7. We draw the second card for the centipede, and it's a 4. So that was worth doing because the centipede ended up with an army strength value of 6, but I had 7, so that still gets me a victory. I get to then defeat the centipede. I gain a colony point, and I get to once again use the ability of my proboscis head to collect a resource from any collection site in the hex where you battled, and I'm going to do, I think I'm just going to do another food because food's really nice to have. But now I have to take casualties, and it's half of the enemy strength rounded down. The enemy centipede strength was 6. So that means I would lose 3 ants. But there is a rule in the rule book that says if all of the winner's ants would be lost, their last ant is not lost. So I do have to lose these other two of the 3 ants and that's unfortunate because they were on collection sites that I obviously would have liked to benefit from, but I still at least have control on that hex, which does give me colony points. And that's the last battle for the soldier phase. So we move to the queen phase. And I first collect resources. So now I'm just getting 2 larva, 2 food, and 2 cards. So I'm getting a lot of stuff here, which is great. And then I drew a Dracula abdomen, which says at the start of the slumber phase, you may destroy 1 of your larvae to gain 3 colony points. This ability may be used only once during each slumber. Wow. At the start of each slumber, you may destroy... Oh, 6. Did I say 1? Destroy 6 of your larvae to gain 3 colony points. Well, I do have 6 right now. I have 7 technically, so I, in theory, might be able to benefit from that. All right, and so I did that. Now we go to feeding the ants. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 2 foods enough to feed my 7 ants. And Royal Decree, I can gain 2 food or 5 larva. You know, 2 food sounds nice, 5 larva sound nice. I almost think I need the food though, because thinking ahead, but larva would be nice. But I don't need it. I don't think I want to spend that much action. Yeah, so I'm going to do the 2 food. And now we go to Slumber. So once again, because they have that centipede in the Great Tunnel, this AI centipede player does gain a colony point, but I still have control of 3 inner meadow hexes, so that gives me 3. So I'm still increasing my lead on the centipede. And that moves us into Autumn, the final round. And you know what, guys? I'm just going to finish out this game for you. Because it hasn't been taking as long as I was worried it might. And to start my turn, I want to get these larva out on the board. But I feel like there's no need to, if there's anything else I want to do, there's no need then to get larva out. Because, in fact, I don't even see how I could really lose at this point. So I feel like doing a march, which is a food. And I'm going to, at this point, I think I'm just playing defense. So 1, 2 there, or yeah, I can put 2 over here. Yeah, 1 there. And the winning is, I think, just having more. The Centipede Horde's colony point is greater. Yeah, so the Centipede does then get to do an action. They drew an event, which is an advance. And the advance, if the Centipede Horde reveals an event and there's no centipedes, then it will draw a hex instead. And it drew this one, which, man, has a lot of, oh boy, okay. So a lot of things to note. This wormhole means that if there's another wormhole hex on the board, you can go from that one to this one in 1 step. It does have a centipede icon on it, however. So that's not good. I'm going to put this over here. And I do put a centipede token there. But then because I drew a hex that has a centipede icon, the AI gets to go again. And this time it's an evolution, and it's an invade. So add a centipede to the meadow. Place a centipede in the highest numbered hex that does not already contain a centipede, which again is grasslands. Okay. So then we go to my turn, and I don't see why I really want to do anything but rest. So I'm just going to rest. And at this point, I don't think it matters to do the resource gathering part, but I'll rest, and that means the enemy gets 1 more turn. And it's an evolution, which means it's evading in the next highest. Add a centipede to the meadow. Place centipede in the highest numbered hex. So it goes into dry seep. All right. So worker phase is over. We move on to soldier phase. And we start with was it lowest or highest? I don't know if it doesn't matter a ton. Starting with the lowest. So we start with dry seep. The centipede draws a card. It's a 3. It's a 3 to my 5 because again I have the head. So 3 to 5. I'm not going to take chances. I'm just going to play my 4 here. So I have 9 against 3. It draws a 1, so it's 4. So I win the battle. I gain a colony point. It was 4, right? Yeah, it's 4, so I lose 2 ants. But because I was I won a battle with my proboscis head. I can gain a resource, so I'll just gain a food. We next go to grasslands for that battle, and we draw first for the centipede. It's a 3. I have 5 because it's 4 again, plus my head evolution, which gives me 1, so it's 5. And once again, I'm not going to take any chances. I'm going to just play this 4, and that gives me 9 again. So right now it's 9 versus 3. The centipede only draws a 1 additional number, ferocity, so their army strength is just 4 once again. It's exactly the same outcome basically. So I do kill the centipede, which gives me a colony point. Number of times I've been close to saying victory point, and colony points must be a lot. Okay, so I gain a colony point, and then I just have to lose 2 ants. So I had 1 ant in the outskirts, wasn't even on a site, so that's fine. And then it doesn't really matter, I don't think, so I'll just lose a larva. So that would conclude the soldier phase, because there's no, I don't have ants in this hex, and that centipede, there's no never battles in the Great Tunnel. So we move to the queen phase. We harvest, collect resources. But I think I can just skip right to the end and to the slumber phase. We gain 1 victory colony point for each intermeadow, which is 3. So 1, 2, 3. And the centipede does gain 1 for having a centipede in the intermeadow. But now that we're at the end of that was the last round. The centipede gains 1 during slumber, so we did that. Yeah, so there's no real like end of game centipede points that could really screw me over. So with that said, that was, I guess, a victory for the ants. I'll be honest, I feel like maybe I was doing something wrong, but because I felt that was maybe too easy. But I think that at least gave a very good idea of how this game plays when playing solitaire. And of course, it's very similar in play style if you were to play competitively or cooperatively. All right, so what did I think of March of the Ants? Well, let's start with some of the things that I enjoyed about this game. First, even though in my playthrough I only ended up getting 1 upgrade or evolution for my ant colony, I do really appreciate this whole evolution system that they have in the game. I think it's interesting that you can. There's so many ways that to play with the evolution cards. First, each evolution card has an ability that it provides you, but then it also has the case bonuses, what the passive bonus is for the evolution card. So in the case of a head evolution, the case bonus is that combat bonus. For every head evolution card you have, you gain +1 army strength. But then you have the colony goal bonus, that if you have a set of 1 of each kind of evolution card, that gets you bonus points at the end of the game. And 3 for evolved ant body is what that colony point thing is. And then the fact that you can have multiple of any of the 3 types of parts of the ant body. You can have multiple evolution cards of each part of the body and still gain that case bonus benefit. So that means that even if you already had an evolution for each part of the ant, there's still value in trying to actually get more of those cards, because maybe you want the +2, if not +3 army strength points from head evolutions, even though you only ever get 1 of the actual head evolution abilities to utilize. But point being, I really like that whole ant evolution system. The other thing that I really liked in this game was how combat is handled. It just feels like how an ant battle should be resolved. The more ants you have, the better you typically are going to be. Yes, there's this, the ferocity value of cards, and I like that concept that it's ferocity. It's like, I guess your ants are more fierce than than the ants or centipede they're fighting against, and it just gives you that boost. But for the most part, it's how many ants you have. And there's not really any luck then. It's a relatively deterministic combat system. You don't know if, what kind of a frosty card an enemy might play, or in the case of the solo game, what kind of frosty card the centipede's going to draw to increase its army strength. So there is a little bit of a luck factor there, but for the most part, it's pretty deterministic, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate, the fact that you get bonus in combat from your head evolutions. So I really enjoy the combat in how the combat's resolved, and it's fairly quick and simple. And how you determine the losses too, I appreciate how that works. That makes sense too. It's like, well, if you lose ants based on the army strength value, that to me makes sense. I that's how an ant battle in my mind should be. And in the solo game, I think how the battles for the centipede are handled work well too. You're just drawing 2 cards randomly. You might have a weak centipede, you might have a really strong centipede, you don't know. That to me makes sense because centipedes probably all different sizes, and maybe you're fighting a baby centipede and it only has an army strength of 2, and maybe you find another one that's army strength of 10 because it drawed 2 5-point cards, and that all seems kind of realistic to me in a sense. Not that I really even was expecting this to have any kind of realism in it. I just, of course, like the ant theme. So combat, evolution part of the game are 2 of the things I think I like the most, or that I really appreciated the most. Another thing that I also enjoyed, or I should say appreciate, is the fact they had all these references throughout all these components. So they have, first of all, these reference cards that break down how an ant battle is supposed to go, and then also breaks down all the ways to earn the colony points. But also on your player board, there's all this reference content in terms of what you can do in each phase, and the benefits of each of the castes for each of the parts of the body of the ant you can evolve. And then you have on the Great Tunnel some reference wording. So great work there. Then also the game just in general plays pretty fluidly. I think you were able to pick that up in my video or my playthrough. There wasn't a lot of time where I felt like, okay, how does this work? What do I do now? The actions themselves are very straightforward. You pay a food, you do something. So the structure of the game in general is very smooth. And in terms of things I maybe didn't appreciate as much, I will say the aesthetic of this game isn't anything to write home about. This is a smaller publishing company. I've not heard of I'm not aware of other titles that Weird City Games has published besides this base game and then the 2 expansions I've already mentioned. So I don't really want to be too negative on a smaller company because they're small. I mean, that's the reality of in any industry. If you're a smaller company, your product's not going to be as immaculate as a larger company. But you look at any of these games in my game room, and you would notice that that this game definitely is on the lower end of the spectrum in terms of component quality. These reference cards are helpful and useful, but it's just paper that it could tear relatively easily. And same with the player boards. The cards themselves are okay, but I'm not an expert on card quality, but I don't think they're on the high end on card quality. And then the rest of the components are relatively bland. The centipede tokens are are kind of not super exciting to look at. The theme and everything else about this game still makes me want to play it. I'm not saying that the art and the components make me not want to play the game, but they're definitely nothing exciting or exceptional. So, and I typically care most about how a game plays more than how it, than its components, unless the components actually are negatively impacting the game experience, which I would say that wasn't the case here. But some players may be put off by some of the aspects of the components in this game. The other thing, the replayability of the solo game in general is a question mark in my mind. I've done my initial playthrough, so I don't want to assume anything, but in the base game here, the setup wise, anytime you play the solo game, it's going to be identical. You have the same deck of Centipede cards you'll be playing with, and the same set of tiles that you're drawing from. And of course, once you start playing the game, you might have different play experiences depending on the cards you're drawing and the hexes you're exploring. But I have a feeling that the game's going to play out very similar in that at the end of each round, you just need to be getting more colony points than the Centipede. And the Centipede's going to be able to do more the more that you're doing. Because every action you take, the Centipede gets to take an action. So if you just take the minimum number of actions, the Centipede's going to have the minimum number of things it can do, which is really just one action, because you have to at least take one action before you can rest. And I feel like that's how I would normally be playing this game Solitaire, is I would take an action and rest. Unless I really felt I needed to do one more thing. But I feel like, in general, if you try to do one more thing, it's just going to hurt you more than help you. In the solo game, opposed to the multiplayer game, there's just things that I don't think you're going to care about doing as much. That, these colony cards, a lot of the things that for sure probably are more important than the multiplayer game, just I don't think transition over as much into the solo game. I say that also because I do then want to point out, once again, the value of these expansions that have been released. Because for sure, I know, I think in this expansion, content was added to improve the solo and solitaire game experience and add more variety and flavor. So I do hope to get that to the table. And let me know in the comments if that interests you and you guys want me to play with this expansion stuff. If you thought this game seemed really interesting and were curious what the expansion adds to the game. I don't think the solitaire system's broken or bad or anything like that. I just am wondering if it's more of a novelty to have in this game more than a game in itself. It feels like an add-on, which is fine, but if you wanted to get this strictly for solo play, I guess is kind of what I'm trying to get at. I would suggest maybe you think about determining if you're only getting this for solo play, if you really think it would be worth getting for just that. Because I think this game still is more focused on having kind of a multiplayer experience, which is where the 4X style game really is going to come out more, which is what this game is kind of supposed to be. It's supposed to be like a streamlined 4X Twilight Imperium, but themed. So you're not going to really get that when playing against the Centipede AI. But at the end of the day, this was kind of like an initial playthrough review for me, so I probably want to at least try this a couple more times. I would be interested in trying it co-op too and seeing if that really impacts the gameplay experience a lot. Definitely could be interesting, so something I still want to try to do. And of course, again, one more time, do want to say that, well, with this expansion stuff, maybe that really helps improve the solo game and takes it to the next level. Well, with that said, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your guys' time and attention. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything that I could be doing better, or also let me know if there's things that I'm doing that you really appreciate. But with that said, this is Nick from Talking Cardboard. Hope to see you guys again soon.